Singapore's reputation as a secure financial hub, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's very attractive.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you'll see investors who are not Singaporean, but then they will start off here as the launchpad.
Welcome to another episode of Business Beyond Borders. Today we are very excited to have with us Kennedy Chen, who is currently a partner at Harry Elias. With more than a decade of experience, Kennedy specialises in the corporate and finance law, with expertise in areas such as mergers and acquisitions, debt and equity capital markets, corporate restructuring, regulatory compliance, as well as private equity and venture capital. Kennedy has been named by the Singapore Business Review as one of the most influential lawyers under the age of 40 but in Singapore, and he was also recognized by the International Commercial Mediation Centre for his contributions to the Belt and Road Initiative, an initiative that has been established by the Beijing PRC Law Society as well as the Beijing Civil Affairs Municipal Bureau. He was actually one of the only Singapore representative on the mediator panel, and I'm excited to learn more about this in a short while. In the meantime, welcome Kennedy, welcome to today's episode.
Hello everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us, and maybe to kick off today's podcast, could you share with us what does your day-to-day work look like?
Hello everyone again. My name is Kennedy Chen. I'm a corporate commercial Singapore lawyer with about 13 years of experience. Just to answer your question, how do I start my day, or how do I start
What's a typical day?
Typical day. I try to prioritize my day or the things that I do by urgency and difficulty.
Okay.
Either when work concludes for the day, or maybe the first thing when I wake up.
Yep.
So usually it could be a mix of ongoing matters, actual timelines with clients. Okay. And then that has already engaged us. Okay, this could also include calls or meetings, office administrative matters, okay, internal discussions with my team members or members of the other teams of the firms, because sometimes we have work that we work together.
Yes, makes sense.
And then there will also be catch-up, exploratory calls, either with existing clients or leads or people who are coming to you with a particular question. Sometimes these are planned or unplanned. Sometimes I have to wear a few hats, which can be quite fun also, can be quite fulfilling, at least from the way I see it so far. You know, so often I'm asked to maybe evaluate on the pros and cons of maybe a potential deal, or maybe likely outcomes. Just again, exploratory stages. Of if people were to litigate their disputes and things like that. And of course, to be asked sometimes such possibly difficult questions is a motivating factor for me as well.
Okay.
To try to want to work better. I think all in all, this is a snapshot of how my day looks. So earlier you introduced me. I'm a corporate partner of Harry Elias Partnership, which is a Singapore law firm. Very, very fortunate actually, because as I go about my day, I work with and also am supported by an outfit of staff, lawyers and also seniors that support me in this process. So my team lead actually, Mr. Ong Wei Jin, recognizes that I do wear those different hats that I talked about. And my managing partner, Mr. Philip Fong, also they always are very supportive and in the process, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, that's very nice. Always very nice to have good bosses to support you. Makes the work a lot more enjoyable.
I hope you're hearing this.
And maybe you have shared with us your experience or your day-to-day role, right? But of course, all of us need time out of work as well. Would love to understand a little bit more about what do you do to recharge outside of work.
I'm not too sure recharging, but sometimes people like to say good rest equals good work, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So I think I play a lot of football.
Okay.
And then I do a little bit of yoga.
Nice.
And some golf. Okay. So. But actually, since a very, very young age, I've been very influenced, by film, music, the arts, fashion, and so even more recently, climate change initiatives, etc. These things kind of get to me, and I have a natural inclination towards wanting to know more about them. So, by growing up, a lot of these have inspired me a great deal. Growing old as well, So, as ways of representing, I guess, and expressing the person that I am, but more importantly, right, other than allowing myself to recharge, right, it gives me the opportunity to sort of understand cultures that are different from mine. With the internet, everything is and a lot of knowledge out there, and with these pursuits, right, you actually get to understand cultures that are different from a Singapore person or a Singapore Chinese man or boy, like me, right? So they all say art imitates life, right? So then based on that, I guess you get some kind of inspiration from these pursuits. So there's something that I am actually quite proud of, like maybe right about 20 years ago, I used to write freelance for this for Hypebeast.
Interesting.
Yeah. So back then it was just a blog.
Okay.
Yeah, but right now, of course, you see that IG handle, they have actually like a few things going on.
Correct.
They then interestingly went on to list on Hong Kong Exchange, and then now they are in an SPAC on Nasdaq. So it was quite fun for me. I actually did quite write a few posts for them before. It was nice. Yeah.
Actually, out of curiosity, what kind of posts were they about? What do you write on?
Mostly sneakers and
Yeah. Do you collect yourself?
I don't really. I used to collect, but then now I think that like I would like to wear them. And
nice.
If not, then it's separate discussion. We could have another podcast for that. To be honest, So but other than my passion in the law itself, as a career concept principle, right? I think that like I'm also very much interested in business and the administration, operation, management of how business goes, because I cannot simply just talk the talk. Sometimes I have to walk the talk in order to be able to demonstrate some kind of value to my own clients or leads, right? So particularly now these interests actually lie in the sectors of F&B, logistics, tech, recruitment, especially with the gig economy and the transformation of work, digital and traditional marketing, fashion and vintage fashion, and also finally volunteering, on some levels. So I think these are the kind of pursuits or things that I'm generally interested in, other than the law.
And was your interest or passion in business the reason why you decided to really specialize in the area of corporate and finance law?
I think they were symbiotic, like they came in tandem.
I see.
And then I've from a young age, my family was kind of like doing business, so there was some exposure of sorts. But then later on, I think that like symbiotically, these things just kind of come together. Sometimes people come to you, right? They might not already have the deal cooked. So when the deal is not cooked, right, as a lawyer, when they come to you for advice, right, you have to actually find out some information to sort of give them some more context other than whatever they've given you, and then later on this snowballs into something that you actually want to go and learn about.
Makes sense. Okay, and maybe now we dive a bit deeper into the history of your career, and maybe a bit more into being the first Singapore representative on the International Commercial Mediation Center for the Belt and Road Initiative, right? How was that experience? Maybe share with us your reflections from being involved, and also how you feel like now looking back into your experience then.
I think for me, mostly at that point in time, right? I mean, I don't really look back, but mostly at that point in time was pride, because to be able to be asked, to represent your country in anything at all, right? I definitely feel a huge sense of pride, and then I start to think that, hey, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm doing something right, or like, actually, maybe I'm not doing something wrong, or I'm not doing anything wrong, after all, and at least, you kind of know that, okay, you are on some kind of a right track. I'm a person that I do not believe in external validation to feel that you are valuable, but sometimes some kind of validation or indication of this sort will be useful. Of course, in the greater scheme of things, we also need to be objective about the kind of validation we seek. But in this regard, it was nice, really, and I feel proud to be able to to represent the country.
And what were some sort of learnings that you have had looking back at the experience?
I think the beauty of it is that like this is something very real.
Okay.
It's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, so it came out as the initiative, published across the board, applicable in various countries.
Correct.
Okay, and then it was a bit of a trial and error.
Yeah.
Okay, because at that point in time I was actually on an exchange trip in China.
I see.
It was going to be in Guangzhou and Beijing. So
Right.
I took the opportunity to simply just meet up with some of the law firms that I work with, right? Then they said, do you want to speak at this seminar, which is the professionals, they have to go for some continuing professional obligations. So in a way, I'm helping them earn points, you know. But then they said, we're going to get some guys to come down. I said, okay. And then later on, what happened was there was 2 sessions. There was 100 over lawyers.
Yeah.
Right. What you then see is that there was various PRC lawyers that were working on various jurisdictions. You see, and then you get to discuss the operation of commercial and business interests, right?
Yeah.
As they discuss with you, because they will share with you, right?
Correct.
On the ground in various jurisdictions, right?
Yeah.
And is it very different from Singapore? Yes, it is. But then later on, what you then realize is that like, there are some translatable commercial matters.
Okay.
There are a lot of translatable legal principles.
Yeah.
So then you start to view the law not just as like a Singapore lawyer thing. Singapore lawyer can only advise in Singapore law. That's true, right?
Yeah.
But you realize that in the grand scheme of things, right, learning about this allows you to view the entire world as an oyster.
Yeah.
And I think that was nice for me. Like, to really talk to what I would like to think are like-minded people.
Yeah.
And then welcoming me as a Singaporean lawyer, and then discussing certain matters, and then later on we start to see actual things in operation, and then and for me I think it was more a cultural exchange actually. Although people say, professionally it was a lot of exposure, blah blah blah, which is that's great. I mean, like that's a given, right?
Yes.
You go and speak professionally to people, right?
Yeah.
I guess that should increase professional exposure, right?
Correct.
But then you get something else, like a
Yeah.
bonus, and I think the bonus itself, that's the part that really I think about.
Yeah. Very nice. And talking about cross-cultural, we also understand that you have been involved in many cross-border deals. We'd like to touch a little bit more about that. What has been maybe the most memorable cross-border deals that you have done? And could you share with us what those are and what your experience has been?
I think cross-border deals, I have been quite lucky, to be very honest, very privileged, and very blessed, in fact, with being able to take part in quite a few projects which I think have shaped me into the person, into the professional, of course, and more importantly, the person that I am today.
Yeah.
Because of my, again, fortunate ability to be able to rewrite Mandarin. As a junior lawyer, I was sort of asked to work on matters which would involve the language per se, or stakeholders who could only speak Mandarin. So very early on, I think this was maybe in 2011, 2012, when I just graduated, it's like I worked on a project where I had to do on the ground field work in China. So I was actually going in and out Mondays to Fridays, for about 18 months.
Wow.
And I think that was nice because that was the experience itself was great, because of course you are in an overseas country, and then you begin to adapt to a different to working in and speaking and using a different medium.
Correct.
Yeah, which you never thought you would, because like all along in school you thought that we're going to come out internship to speak English, etc. Yeah, and then more recently I've also worked on renewable energy deals in Vietnam, EV, solar and wind related, and again, because of the being able to communicate in Chinese, right? I have also worked on US NASDAQ matters, where shareholders prefer speaking in Chinese, but then they have interest in Singapore, where that's how the Singapore lawyer and the Singapore law element comes in.
That's right.
And then, so other notable deals actually also include assisting a Japanese corporation for landmark projects in Myanmar.
Okay.
Singapore stakeholders in a hospitality joint venture in Indonesia and parts of Surabaya. So, but these collectively make up some memorable cross-border deals that I've been involved in.
Okay.
But I mean, to be very frank, even for those that I don't mention,
Yeah.
in case I have clients watching this, right? And then they think, hey, why didn't he mention our deal, right? Like, then I think I treat every deal as a baby.
Okay.
Like I get a sense of pride when people come to me for certain advice. It shows that again, maybe I'm doing some things that are right as well.
Right.
So I like to put in I really take personal responsibility for each deal, and I think that's nice. I'm also grateful generally because Singapore's reputation as a secure financial hub, right? Okay, it's very attractive. Oftentimes you'll see investors who are not Singaporean, but then they will start off here as the launchpad before they will set up a whole type of concept incorporated here. Then they move their funds into various parts of the region, and I think a big part of it is really reputation per se. I cannot really take all the credit.
But I mean, being involved in so many cross-border deals, I think you mentioned Myanmar, Indonesia, and many other countries. Just wondering, what are some of the key factors to really consider when you're thinking about these cross-border deals, especially in the corporate law and also the finance area, like mergers and acquisitions? There will be people with two different interests. How do you bridge both the cultural interests and also their own personal business interests in making the deal succeed?
It's nice, that you mentioned the word different interests, right? So then the starting point, right, is that like if two people can come to a table or come to the table, right, to discuss something, right, it means that there are actually a set of overriding. It's like a Venn diagram, right? There are a set of factors, right, that they can come together and match, and actually it is not like a win-lose situation. It ideally is a win-win situation. It should be, depending on how they play things out.
Correct.
So, like, I think the overriding point, really, in my view, is that, like, if you are outcome-driven, creative, right, whilst you pay close attention to legitimate procedures and maybe even market industry practice, for example, right, you couple that with respect, humility, and an inquisitive mind, but not an intrusive mind. Okay, this inquisitive mind helps you to sort of like engage in discussions to find out at the first set, right? I need to first find out my client's interests, true interests. Help them find out whether or not whatever they are worried about or concerned about are really imperative or essential to the deal at hand. Later on, when we either negotiate or go into broad discussions with the counterparty or their professionals, right? We engage in that as well. Then we see, are there ways for the Venn diagram to come about? And I think like when you add up all those factors that I mentioned earlier, right? Because I don't think not one factor is singularly important, right?
Correct.
Then you realize that language itself, right? Being able to be bilingual or whatever have you may also play a role. Not the be all and end all.
Right.
But it will immediately, if you speak the same language, it will, on a first impressions basis, immediately build some rapport.
Right.
This rapport might not take the deal through, but it may be a catalyst of sorts at opportune times. Only at opportune times, but at the start you'll build this immediate rapport. The rest is you, right? If you build that rapport and then you are just like being whatever, then okay, right? I mean, you know what I'm getting at.
Yes.
And then in the grand scheme of things, right, it goes back to why do we add all these factors together? Because it is the keen interest to understand a person's background, culture. Then we can go on and say, I believe that these are your actual interests. Then let's work together. I think we can. I think that's how I see it.
Okay. And interesting that you mentioned, language as a catalyst. We also understand that you can speak up to 5 different languages. So beyond English and Mandarin Chinese, you can also speak Cantonese, Thai, if I'm not wrong, and also Bahasa Indonesian. And it's quite impressive, I have to say. How do you, pick up these languages? And personally, I mean, you briefly mentioned earlier how these languages can help to be a catalyst in some of the deals that you have been involved in. But how do you maybe share some examples of how those have helped you in some negotiations or some deal examples?
I think a big part of it was really growing up. I grew up with my grandmother and a lot of my aunties and uncles, right? So a lot of them spoke either dialect or Mandarin with me. And then going through secondary school, I was actually in a Chinese school, and then which placed a lot of emphasis on Mandarin. And it so happened that I was also, I would like to think, because I was not very good with math and science. I was mostly better in the humanities. So it came almost quite naturally to me. And then, but overall, I think, how do we utilize that? Right? We say this language capability thing, right? It's not like the star factor, right?
Correct.
But then it's kind of like works in the background sometimes, and then at opportune times it becomes the star. Then it goes back to taking a back seat, right? You know? And like, you know, overall, I would just want to quickly emphasize on what we discussed earlier, just having an open mind, right? And like, you know, showing empathy, active listening ear, all right, sincere active listening ear, not those that will tell you, oh, you need to have an active listening ear, so that people will, you can build rapport with
sincerity
people,
is key.
right? Not that. I'm talking about that kind of the real thing going on, right? A genuine interest, right, to get to know the person you're talking to, okay, and then we'll bring about and facilitate, I think, sincere discourse on finding out concerns and interest of whoever you are speaking with, parties involved, whether counterparties or even your own clients, or the people that you work with. You know, these could be guys across the table, guys on the same side as you. So then again, this star or whatever of language, right? You know, the occasional star, right? Plays like a complementary and maybe corroborative role when needed to sometimes bridge communication gaps and ease understanding and breed some kind of familiarity, and it can be very psychological sometimes, you know, like and you wouldn't know because, you know, it could simply be just somebody thinking, oh yeah, I think he can speak this, I quite believe him, you know. But at the end of the day, it has to be a situation where, of course, you do have that genuine sincerity, and then language will play a role eventually. You know, I don't think that it will play the full role, but I think that, you know, coupled with other things, there should be some kind of comparative advantage or edge.
Nice. And as we look to, you know, the next generation of lawyers, what advice do you have for young lawyers who are interested to pursue a career, especially involving cross-border legal work or legal career in general?
Advice that I don't really think I'm like the best person to give you such advice, but, you know, to be honest, and it's not that I wasn't honest before this conversation, but mainly because I'm always also looking to let my perspectives evolve. And so, like, nothing is really constant in my view these days. So everything is transient, right? And then perhaps like a worthy starting anecdote would be that change is the only constant. Okay. So then maybe instead I would like to share and not advise. Okay. Somebody tells me you gotta be careful about giving advice, you know, and people take it and things don't turn out well, right? But anyway, maybe share with younger lawyers and maybe even young working adults, right? Like guiding points that I remind myself, you know. See, if you are passionate, right, in the pursuit of excellence, you know, or success in your own definition within your field, be that the law, accounting, finance, the arts, tech, science, humanitarianism, conservationism, or any other fields, right? Because rightfully, every occupation, function, and role deserves excellence. And I would say then we all have a moral obligation to and an ethical duty to be of service, to strive to always be a part of the solution and not the problem. Above all, this is a world that our children, you know, our next generation will inherit, and I think that surely that's something to something worthy to be a part of, right? And then, like, I think your fingerprints, right, on the lives that you touch, right, with your work, will last a lifetime, and beyond, and make up your legacy. So we really truly only fail if we stop trying. Because sometimes I can understand how work and how life can be, you know, work happens and life happens and things like that, right? So whilst it's true that, you know, we should always play to our strengths, because we always hear from our seniors and people that, oh, you know, you should play to your strengths. I don't disagree. I really don't disagree with that at all. But let's not forget that we can also grow our strengths. Okay? With the right tools, you know, we will grow our strengths through learning, unlearning, relearning, practice, And perhaps this also extends to language learning as well, if we have the right tools and mindset.
Correct.
In fact, not just language, any other thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then practice doesn't make perfect, right? What does it do? Practice makes improvement.
Yeah.
So whilst we play to our strengths, we remind ourselves that our strengths can be transient. We can change, we can improve our strengths, we can grow more strengths whilst continuing to play to our strengths. So then we are not just constant or rather just stagnant at a certain stage. So that advice given to you is still right, but I think the precursor is that we also need to seek to grow our strengths and practice them. So then from there, I think that when we go back to just add on to these broad factors that we earlier discussed, being aware, being mindful, and stuff like that, right? I think all in all, it makes for, I think, a successful journey for you. Let's not overthink things, right? Correct? Because wasting time doubting whether you're going to be successful or whether this is going to be right or not, it's just not going to be very helpful in my view.
Correct.
So you just put your foot down in front of the other, you move forward, control what you can control, see what happens. Today you win, good, that's great, right? But this too shall pass, right? And then tomorrow you wake up next day, you got to start the journey again. Correct. And then you start the journey again, and then you lose. Sucks. Okay, but this too shall pass, right?
Yes.
Because you're gonna have to wake up again the next day.
And
do the journey again. But it is what it is, and you will move. You will still move in the direction that you need to, in my view. So if you enjoy the process, I think the outcome is going to be secondary. That's how I see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I really like how open-minded you are, and just keep every day as a new day. And I think having that first principles, beginner mindset type of mentality, I think that's very important.
We need to remind ourselves of that, because sometimes we are able to have these views, right?
Correct.
And then we think that they're right. But then later on we just need to pull ourselves out every day.
And which brings me to my last question regarding the law in general. What does the law really mean to you? And also, I guess for some of our listeners who may not be lawyers, what, in your view, should the law mean to them?
I think the law has blessed me on many levels, really. I mean, I am honestly employed. So I do what I love. I can provide for those that I love and care for. So I think, so the law is a benefactor, at least on a personal level for me.
Nice.
You see, just something really, my parents actually, my dad and my mom, they, a couple of years ago, they actually went through a divorce. So then, actually, ironically, my legal training was helpful in some ways for me to try to facilitate this process and to help them to move on to what I hope will be a new happier chapter of their lives, and so then in more ways than one, the law has certain meaning for me. But in general, in my view, the law is opportunity, really, to gain knowledge you didn't think you know. Awareness of things that you mistakenly thought you were aware of, and then clarity of action and next steps. It is that opportunity. Okay, so when I say opportunity, it's merely potential, not kinetic. Okay, unless you act on it, right? So what happens then is that, if you utilize it in a certain way, or if you actively wish to utilize it, right, it will be able to help you to understand your actual rights and obligations, and your commercial and monetary interests, actually, if you see. And then, which you, again, plainly, we do not know what we do not know, right? Correct. So it navigates relationships, whether commercial, personal, or otherwise, and it actually is rightfully an asset, although many actually mistakenly feel that it is a sunk cost. Maybe this could be like how popular media sometimes depicts lawyers and then even in financial accounting, which I'm not saying is wrong, right? Legal fees are pegged as an expense, right? Even like, let's say, marketing fees, they're put pegged as an expense, right? Correct.
That's right.
And but of course, we should also then discuss, and people do discuss, marketing agents, they do discuss, right? They're like,
Yeah.
oh, what was the ROI of this marketing effort, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
so I think, I don't want to say anything that accountants would be angry about. Yeah, so, no, but I don't disagree with them. So, but however, what I'm trying to say is that like there should not be any misunderstanding. The law is a driver, in my view, that anticipates risk, prevents additional unknown costs, even despair, okay, whether you like it or not, okay, it lifts you up, you know, it ideally it should, you know, and if there's any ounce of dedication and commitment, right, to for any business to try and to want to be profitable, successful, then the law should not, in my view, be viewed as a component that drives profits down. Instead, it enhances the chance for profit. Even though you might look at it and think, oh, it's a cost here, you know, but this cost leads to certain other intangible and tangible benefits that later on it might be hard to track. You know, nobody's going to come to you and say, hey, you know, I performed the contract on time because I was worried that you would terminate. You know, nobody will come and tell you that. Nobody will. They'll just say, you know, look at me, I'm a responsible guy, right? I told you I'll deliver, right? And so bottom line is like, if you truly love and are committed to any project or endeavor, right, every expenditure is investment to be successful and in the long run. But if you are not truly passionate, because some people claim to be, but it might not be the case, right? And then every item then becomes an unnecessary cost, and then every reduction, I would think, merely pushes this project to its inevitable end. So I think in my view, the law should be viewed as an asset, rightfully so.
That's a very refreshing take. I personally never viewed the law that way, but I think it's quite refreshing to a new perspective to my own, running the business and things like that. But with that, I think we wrap up the English segment of today's episode. We'll now move on to the Chinese rapid fire questions. So 我们现在就进行中文的快问快答的环节。那Kennedy 你准备好了吗？
OK，
可以啊。OK， 好。那首先就先做个自我介绍吧。
好，线上以及观看视频的朋友，大家好，我是陈建豪，一名13年经验的新加坡律师。我主要工作领域包括合并并购、资本债券市场、挂牌上市以及就是证券交易责任、境内境外合资、公司重组、法规合规以及日常的法律合规。 有些时候我也会进行一些商业咨询，或者是商务策略与结构、谈判的策略，还有诉讼前纠纷管理等。大家好，展年愉快。
谢谢你的自我介绍。那我们就问一些比较有趣的问题吧。就是首先就是您的中文能力是挺强的，就
你在夸我吗？谢谢。
是。那你是如何锻炼自己的中文能力的？
我的那个中学制度，OK， 在没有把我的年龄透露的前提下，我的当时的中年制度，对吗？
对。
如果我们在中四的会考时候，
对，
中文及格，我们就不用再继续念中文了。
那
除非我们之后是修读特制的一些中文科目，例如中华文学。
对。
所以我就没有读中华文学之后，所以其实16岁之后就没有什么机会接触中文。可是家里和奶奶、姑妈、姨妈的交流，
对，
还有互动都是以中文为准。然后在服兵役的时候，也继续以中文交谈。
OK。因
为在服兵役的时候也有英文也有中文。
对。
而在正式成为律师之后其实是大学4年，没有什么接触。虽然有些时候我们会就读1-2个课程，可是这也是6个月的课程。对。然后之后我们就这4年到5年大学没有什么接触，可是开始工作的时候很庆幸有一些需要涉及中文的项目。那时候当时我的律所就要我帮忙一下。之后就开启了这种持续的平台，然后到现在就一直有和中文接触的机会了，就这样。对。所以也说不算是锻炼，就可能是一系列的机缘巧合，让我能够还继续和 这个语言接触，就这样。
OK， 很棒。那就是也是身为一名新加坡的华人嘛，那或者是说你的母语是中文，就刚才也聊到了这地方。那对你来说，就是中文会是一个很重要的语言吗？
我个人认为，对吗？我们也不是说中文了，我们就说母语，好吗
？OK， 好，母语。
就是说我个人认为，母语对于我们自己在新加坡，对吧？就是一种可以更加了解自己的种族文化，还有背景，还有先辈历史的一种就是如果你学会了，你就会，你对自己的认可，还有对家人还有先辈的认识会增强，所以无论是任何种族，我觉得母语都扮演着一种这种非常重要的角色，让你更理解你自己，更认识你自己。
对。
以前刚开始从事涉及中文的法律事务的时候，我都会依赖着谷歌翻译，或者得参考传统的中英文商务词典。那有一个问题就是，你也不知道那个是对还是错的，对吗？所以如果其实想要练习母语的人，无论是中文或者是其他，如果目前可以有一种可以结合专业教材、科技，还有可能用户反馈的平台，我觉得来提供一种让人家可以学习的方式，对吗？会事半功倍，而且可能我不知道，可能会增加学习的兴趣，这是我现在的想法，因为当时真的是我用谷歌翻译的时候是蛮艰辛的。对。
其实我们这家公司想要创造的 APP 就是要解决这个问题，可是那个就是其他的话题吧。
可以，我理解。
那对你来说，就是完美的一天会是怎么样的一天？
你们说那个 APP， 你们有在请人吗？那个，OK， 来完美的一天吗？那个完美的一天，我想一想。对，可能没有完美的一天，可是如果真的能够最靠近完美的一天，就是如果有完美的一天，那明天、大后天，或者是每一天一辈子，你应该去哪里找到做好自己更好的那种动力呢？那个我觉得如果可以有接近完美的一天，对我心满意足的，就是如果每天都能够准确的意识到下一天应该以哪种方式、哪种行为、哪种行动，让明天过得比今天好，从之得到启发，我觉得那就是很完美的一天。其实如果每天你都能够遇到人或事情，可以增强你原来的思维，提高你的认知还有知识，提升你的境界，对吧？让你走上不一样的一种高峰，或者有不一样的想法，那也是一种每天的小完美。对，这就是我自己。
说得很漂亮。
谢谢。
那如果就是你有机会就是写一本书的话，你会想写什么样的书呢？
写书啊，那个我不知道，那可能如果有机会写书的话，就可能如何有效运用法律，把控人生以及生意风险吧。我很直的，就没有想太多，只想我自己的，想到法律的事情，对不起。所以有时，刚才我们在英文的那个时候说过，有时律师这行业总会被人误解，可能因为种种原因，大众有些时候会对律师有一些小小的误会，对吧？那其实很多时候，当我们等到问题出现的时候，才来试着去解决，对吧？就可能太迟了。那如果我们可以试着在问题发现之前，先立好一些可能性的方案，这对风险和费用的平衡，还有把控管理，会更极为有效。所以如果真的要写一本书，我会写那种书，因为我觉得这对我是一个深刻的一个 题目。
对，我也觉得就是能读你这本书的律师都可以从中学到很多。
没有打算，没有这个打算，只是在回答你的问题。
Okay,
别想多啊，不要想多。
好的，那今天的那个播客的就到此为止。那
好的，
就非常感谢 Kennedy 今天抽空和我们
谢谢大家
分享你的经验和你的就是不只是工作经验，也是自己的思考和想法。那我本身也是从中学到了很多。Thank you so much, Kennedy, for joining today's interview and podcast session. We have, I've personally learned a lot about, understanding different cross-border jurisdictions, how to handle them, but more interestingly, what exactly does the law mean to non-lawyers like myself and also to lawyers out there who are listening to today's episode. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Business Beyond Borders. If you have any feedback or thoughts, do write into us at support@bluent.com. Click to follow to tune into the next episode. See you again soon.